Greetings again, folks. Who'd have thought another year done came and went already, man? The older you get, the faster time flies by, right? 2014 is over, and I, the Retromatic Gamer, want to talk about my top 10 board gaming experiences of 2014. Now, not all of these are going to, in fact, most of these aren't going to be new games, but you can kind of consider this a top 10 game, except not all the games that I'm going to talk about today are actually my favorite games either. Basically, I'm just going to discuss the games I enjoyed the most this year. And I'm sure this list will be different next year because new games will come and old games will go. I'll get sick of things. I'll fall in love with things. Things will have their renaissances for my group. Anyways, let's just get started, right? You can accuse me of trying to squeeze an 11th game on a top 10 list if you want, but I do have to put a shout out, honorable mention to Pathfinder, the adventure card game. I mean, we started it in August of 2013, and just last month finally completed the entire 6-scenario adventure path, so we have completed all that there is to play an adventure card game. I didn't rate this higher on my list because, and honestly I can't even say it would be 11th place if I had a choice, because the game just didn't seem as challenging as I'd hoped it would be. It was interesting, it was a nice facsimile of a role-playing game, but as a strategy gamer it just felt like there was a bit missing, especially with my group having their stuff down to a fine art. We didn't have any real challenges playing the game. We didn't really face a scenario that we couldn't win or, at least had any difficulty with. I was kind of disappointed. It's not like I wanted to get my ass kicked, but I did want to see a lot more challenge in the game than I did. But it was interesting nonetheless, and we did spend a lot of time playing through Pathfinder, so I have to tip my hat to it. It was a very unique and interesting game experience nonetheless. I can't say we're going to jump into Skull and Shackles because we're kind of tuckered out on this game though. But if we ever try this one again, we've got some ideas that'll make it more difficult. Number 10, Outpost. Aaron picked this one up out of the blue, citing its similarities to one of our group's favorite games, Power Grid. This is the 20th Anniversary Deluxe Edition, so it does include a rather interesting mini expansion referred to as Kickers. This really does a good job of balancing out some of the problems that were in the first printing and streamlining the game, adding more options to possible strategies. Now the game does have a bit of a runaway leader effect, but really so did Power Grid. Because once you start steamrolling through the game, it has the snowball effect. You have to get bigger and you have to keep up with your opponents. But we've been having a blast exploring a lot of the different possibilities, and everyone trying to master kind of the skills it takes to do well in Outpost. I don't think it'll have the longevity of Power Grid though, so this will probably be off the list by this point in time next year. But until then, we're still going to enjoy this, and it was an unexpected sleeper hit. Outpost. Now you can call me cultist to the new if you want to, because Xia Legends of a Drift System hasn't even existed for more than, say, the last couple of weeks. Especially in retail stores. I mean, this one just hit the shelves. But thank you, Matt, for bringing this by, because just the one game I've gotten out of it, apparently the rest of my group has gotten to play it more often than I have. Xia Legends of a Drift System, as I mentioned in my last video, really came out the gate strong with our group. I mean, it's a really flexible open-world sandbox space exploration game that really makes us feel like we're playing some of our favorite computer games like Freelancer, Wing Commander, Privateer. I mean, the theme is fantastic, the gameplay is simple and quick, and I can already foresee we're going to have a good long life with Xia Legends of a Drift System. So I believe my buddy Matt, this is probably the best $85 he's ever spent. I bought my first Crokinole board last January. It was a gorgeous Celtic cross design. It'll be the next slide I show. And Mayday Games decided, after seeing the review I did on this channel nearly a year ago, to go ahead just last month and send me a Black Friday Christmas present for free with that second Crokinole board. They didn't have to do that, but it was an awesome thing. Nonetheless, I have introduced most of my friends and family to Crokinole, the Canadian pool slash carom slash Oh, I don't know. It's an awesome game though. For being a short and simple experience and a dexterity game, it is a seriously addictive thing that has basically changed the way my household looks at gaming. And a lot of my friends are just so attracted to this game. It's one of the best things that's ever happened in my household. Crokinole. Thank you, Mayday Games. Now, Cosmic Encounter here has had a bit of a resurgence in my house lately, after almost a year and a half of not being played a lot. This is one of my favorite games. I reviewed it a long time ago and gave it rave reviews. And Tom Vassell does a really good job of explaining what is so awesome about Cosmic Encounter, and all I can say is that I agree wholeheartedly with him. The variety involved in the game and the unpredictability. It's not like the kind of chaos you don't feel like you have a chance of controlling and winning. It's just that it's nice to know that no matter what anyone thinks of the situation, there's always something someone can do to completely change the game. It's not that it's wildly chaotic, but there's always powerful things you can feel and do. So this year it started hitting the table again, and I was so happy about that. It validated me picking up some of the expansions that I missed over the last couple of years, and we have really been having a blast with these new alien powers and introducing this to some of the newer gamers in our group and getting better plays out of it, since we've kind of shaken off some of the gamers that didn't like Cosmic Encounter when we stopped playing it. Cosmic Encounter is never going to grow old with me. It is my hardest beaten box on the shelf, and as I've said many a time, a game box that isn't beaten to shit is just the box for a game that hasn't been loved enough. Cosmic Encounter is probably my most loved game. Core Worlds, deck building as an engine for a 4X style game. It's just core. I think it's deck building at its second best. I'll explain deck building at its best shortly, but really the deck building mechanic has matured a lot since Dominion. Instead of just being the game unto itself, it is now a driving force in much better games like this one here. It really does a good job of capturing the feel of Twilight Imperium without using a board, and, well, using a deck building mechanic at the same time. It's weird, but it combines my favorite aspects of some of my favorite games together. And it still releases expansions occasionally, although I would say that anything past the first expansion, Galactic Orders, is truly unnecessary. Core Worlds, with its first expansion, Galactic Orders, is one of the beefiest games my group plays, and if to take us as a collective whole, this is our favorite game, and we've never played a game of Core Worlds that wasn't completely interesting from start to finish. Mage Knight, the board game, however, is probably deck building done at its finest, because, again, you're not really playing the game as a deck builder, but more as your World of Warcraft board game style of adventuring and exploration. You're rune-bound, if you will. You explore a countryside looking for things to conquer, to grind your character up to a high level and win because you have the most experience points, to become the most powerful character you can be. It captures the essence of role-playing and adventure games, but it uses the deck building aspect in such a way that every turn is like solving a new puzzle. Now, the only disappointment about the game is because it is so meaty and so thinky, it is a long game, like Twilight Imperium long. But unlike Twilight Imperium, Mage Knight is a game that I always look forward to spending that kind of time with, because there's just so much to do and so many different ways to do it. And I'm sure this is true of TI as well, but I got so tired of that. It just seems so much longer than... I don't know how else to explain it, but Mage Knight to me is more worthwhile than the same amount of time spent doing less with fewer options than Twilight Imperium offers. And this will probably always be one of my favorite games. Now, Race for the Galaxy I was first introduced to several years ago at a game convention in 2008. And I had such a poor experience with it because everyone else at the table, even though they advertised being willing to teach the game, even the GM for the event was just such a horrible teacher. Everyone kept looking at me like I was holding back the group because I was trying to learn how to play. It was not an easy game for me to play, so I stayed away from it for so long. But this year I acquired Race for the Galaxy in a trade, and am I glad I did. Because finally having focused and settled down to learn the rules of the game, and to more patiently teach it to the guys in my gaming group, has really been a rewarding experience, because it's really a rich game. We can now see why it tops the lists in Board Game Geek so often. It's the tableau building, and I don't know how else to describe it, but every time we play it, we discover something new and something interesting, and we learn a whole different way to assemble a strategy. It's got the flexibility I really love out of really hardcore games, but it's such a short and simple and sweet game. It's usually over in 45 minutes. It's got the best of all worlds. I don't know what more to ask for. This one really surprised us this year. It just came out of nowhere, smacked us in the faces, and told us that we will love it, period. And we do. Now, there's a reason David Gregg autographed one of the expansions I bought for Nightfall. For a while, I was officially considered the biggest fan of this game, and I would almost dare challenge that I still am. Now, I say that Mage Knight and Core Worlds might be deck building at its finest, but I still have a thing for the old school take-that card games like Lunch Money. Nobody else in my group has a thing for it the way I do. Nightfall is yet another game that has this year had a resurgence in its popularity. We've got guys that are taking a second look at it going, you know what, it's not as bad as I thought it was the first time I played it. And suddenly it's taken off, so I picked up some more expansions, and it's been really enriching the experiences that we've had with Nightfall, especially playing with the avatars and such. Oh my god, Nightfall is my favorite board game for the most part. It is my favorite game, period. It's just so open-ended, and so, despite its simplicity of having the I attack, you defend like Magic the Gathering, I don't know, it's a game that instead of it playing you, it really depends on how you play it. Like Cosmic Encounter, it's all about the group think, and even the smallest thing about a group, a different player with the same setup, can just change everything about how Nightfall works from play to play. And it is probably my favorite deck building game, if not my favorite game. Star Trek Attack Wing I just got into maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago. I picked up the base set, and I've had so much fun with just the base set. Now, I used to play Star Wars X-Wing, which is the same game system as this, and that game I didn't like nearly as much. I mean, it's the same game, right? Well, the first ships that were out, TIE Fighters and X-Wings, it just seemed like my games with them were so long and drawn out because you had so many ships on the table, and the way the stats were balanced, it was so difficult for any of them to damage the others, that it seemed like games went on forever and nothing really happened of it. Whereas in Star Trek Attack Wing, there's just so many more things to do, and it's more about shield management and positioning than X-Wing than X-Wing is. But with at least having more damage dice on most ships than they have defense dice means things will happen over the course of the game, and you will see it come to a conclusion. It's more about the timing of what you bring to the table and how you use it, and it just seems like the strategies in this are deeper and richer, and I've been enjoying my time with it so far, and I look forward to picking up more of the expansions and really cracking this open in tournament play. This game and my next game are getting me back out of the house into tournaments and organized play for sure. Last but not least, and you should have guessed it, number one is Dice Masters. Yeah, it has been a long time since I have gone apeshit over a game, much less a collectible. I mean, when I got rid of my Yu-Gi-Oh! Collection in 2009, I had sworn off collectible gaming, period, forever, or so I thought. I was always a fan of the living card game formats. I picked up some Game of Thrones, I picked up some Netrunner, and I like board gaming because of the fact that most board games aren't collectible things. So sure, you get expansions and whatnot, but it's not like you're expected every couple of months to drop several $100s on booster boxes to get random cards. That's why I like tabletop gaming. I spend a set amount of money to entertain a lot of people at an equal ground where your pocketbook doesn't necessarily determine who's going to be the best champion at the table. But with Dice Masters, it's, even with the overpriced craziness that was going on during the shortage of the summer, with its unexpected popularity, it's still cheap and easy to get into. It was so easy to convince most of my friends to start playing it. Now we're looking at new ways to play it, multiplayer. It's for us, it's basically what Magic was for most people in the 90s, happening all over again, and we're really digging it. So I've got to say that whether it's my favorite game or not, Dice Masters was definitely the best thing that happened to me gaming-wise this year. And there you have it, my top 10 gaming experiences of 2014. I don't necessarily mean straight up that they're my favorite games, or else probably, say, Nightfall might have topped the list a little higher than third for sure. Anyways, I hope you give some of them a try, and I'd love to hear what was the best game you played in 2014? Think back on it, reminisce. Let me know in the comments. Tell me stories. What was the single coolest thing that happened to you at a game table this year? I want to know. Post in the comment sections, and otherwise, happy 2014, and I'll see you guys next year with another episode of Tabletop Spotlight. Thank you very much for watching, folks.